Utah football gets one final win to conclude the 2024 season. Was this Kyle Whittingham's final win? How was Utah able to get it done? We're breaking it down right now on Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we appreciate all of you like and subscribe, continue to support this show. And now my name is JT Wistrcill. Almost forgot to do the intro because I've introduced myself because I'm so fired up after we got the Utah win to talk about right here. So, JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department with you. And Utah got a win. Finally, it had been over 2 months since it happened, but Utah gets it. And what makes this one special is it could be the final one for Kyle Whittingham. And I think that is my biggest takeaway is regardless of what happens next with Kyle Whittingham, we can at least say, okay, Utah won their final game that Coach Whitt may potentially play in. And I think that would have been really tough, right? To have arguably, as I often say, and I do argue for, the best coach in Utah football history. If he were to end it with 8 straight losses, that just leaves such an icky taste in your mouth. And it was great to see this Utah team find a way to get it done. Was this Kyle Whittingham's final game? You can definitely make the argument. Also, you guys can drop your comments below. I love trying to get to the comments live on this. Cole Stevens already said the drought is finally over. I know exactly what you're saying. Papes, I think Papes or Paps. I'm going to go with Papes. Says, go Utes. And Jake Hansen said, really like what I saw from Williams tonight. Hopefully he stays. Yes. Oh, we'll get into that. We'll definitely get into the whole transfer portal aspect of everything here in a moment. But was this Kyle Whittingham's final game with Utah? You know what? If you made me say, like, JT, what do you think watching that game? I would go, yeah. I do think this was the last time we see Kyle Whittingham coach for Utah on the sideline. I'm not saying sources tell me this, sources tell me that. If you say, hey, JT, you cover this team every single day, you see all of the notes and all of the stories and everything and the quotes that come out, what do you think is going to happen? I would say I think this is Kyle Whittingham's last one. Name's the head coach in waiting, all the conversation before I'm day-to-day with Jim Rome, even this week, or even the players, they do the unthankful thing with Kyle Whittingham, which I always love seeing that. Even they were, some of the quotes in there, even I was kind of like, okay. And there was even the one thing I'll really say for I do think this is Whitt's final game. There was a shot of him on the sideline. Look, I don't know what Kyle Whittingham was thinking there, but I've seen enough people before look like they're taking in a moment. It looked like Kyle Whittingham to me. My interpretation of that moment was he was taking in his final game coaching Utah on the sideline. Also, I know we're all frustrated by the season, but I couldn't be the only one fired up to see this group of seniors who have done so much for the University of Utah football program, yet one final win. So I thought that was special seeing this group of these seniors. Mekhi Bernard, over 1,000 yards. There's a lot to talk about. Maybe number one of things I'm just most fired up about. The best thing about Utah tonight was the Utah defense. They were tremendous. But I want to start somewhere else because in a year where offensive optimism has been hard to come by for Utah, Zacharyus Williams provided that in spades tonight. 6 catches for 72 yards. Also had the 2 carries, those end arounds, 2 for 11 yards. And he was just fun, Williams. And it was all kinds of plays, right? It was a couple of big plays. It was a couple of gotta have it, like 4th down plays for Utah too. Williams flashed. The Utah receivers overall have underwhelmed this season. But Darren Zipper has done some nice things. Williams has done some nice things. Those are 2 freshmen. That's even without Tayshawn Lyons, who really wasn't a part of the game plan in the second half of the season, flashing a lot. So that I'm excited about this wide receiver, the young wide receiver core that Utah has. Got to hit the portal and bring in your number one. Dorian Singer's moving on after this. How about Dorian Singer's one-handed catch, by the way? That is, I know he put on his Instagram story earlier in the year, wasted talent. Look, overall, he's not wrong. I mean, Utah wasted his talent because he is one of, I think with better quarterback play on the year, he would have been one of the better receivers in college football. And by better, I'll say top 30, top 20 maybe in that range. I think Singer has that kind of potential if Utah maximized him. Also, I couldn't be the only one who was happy to see Landon King finally get in the end zone. If you watch this show for long enough, you know what a big fan I am of Landon King's athleticism and skill set. I think he's a really good tight end. About last year, he had a bad hand with poor quarterback play. This year, a deep tight end room and also bad quarterback play a lot of times. but get to see him get in the end zone, a great catch. I'm a big fan of his. I think he does a really good job. A couple of you guys said something about Williams already. I do think Williams could be a stud. I think the one thing we forget about Williams too, like outside the fact he just looked really good, he's 6'2". Like that, and I forgot his size out there is really impressive, and it gets me excited about his future and potential. I think Alvis Whitted has done a really good job trying to bring in guys for Utah football. Have they always worked out? No. Emery Simmons last year, and we did see Damian Alford try to get in the end zone tonight. He might have had a chance. It was not a great throw by Bottari. Threw that one way too far over the end zone, basically, for him to have a chance on. Also, if you're going to throw a fade, like it's a jump ball there, why do you not throw it to Caleb Lohner? Did Caleb Lohner get in tonight? Some of you guys can tell me if you think he got it. I did not see Caleb Lohner in the game, but there's also where a lot of guys obviously running off the field. One guy who was also spectacular tonight, because I want to look and see, did he have any tackles? Okay, he had one tackle. I forgot Cameron Calhoun was playing at points tonight. He was unreal in coverage. They never threw his way. He, to me, was he Utah's best corner? Close. I would maybe give him a slight edge just in terms of who covered the best, but obviously Smith Snowden had the best play of the night. Yes, Zacharyus Williams had a really good pick too, but that was a bad throw more than anything. And yes, to run over the middle of the field, the quarterback is staring down his intended target, but Smith came like a bullet out of nowhere and snagged that and got into the end zone. Really excited about those two's future. Rabbit Evans did some big things too. The Utah defense, I mean, really impressive, right? I think Zacharyus Williams had some ups and downs. He had the big sack, right? Then later on, he ends up he gets the interception, but he also got beaten coverage a few times too. But really good day for the Utah secondary, right? I mean, you look at what UCF had. I mean, only 206 passing yards, and even that, like a lot of that was in garbage time, or just after Utah had gotten the pick six when they marched down the field. So let's see what else you guys are kind of want to talk about with this Utah win. Who do you want to be the OC? I still think Mike Bajakian deserves a chance to interview for it. There's a lot of good and interesting candidates out there. I want to do a full breakdown of all the reported. I've seen other Utah beat reporters that put out lists of who Utah could potentially be adding. So that's definitely going to be something we'll talk about on the show this week. So I'm very curious to see who Utah gets as their OC. As we talked about to open the show, I do think Morgan Scalley is going to be the guy for Utah moving forward. So I am going to say that you're probably going to see a new OC, even though I think Mike Bajakian deserves a chance. But I definitely want to see a new OC who is going to try and maximize guys like Zacharyus Williams, like Darren Zipper. And speaking of pass catching options, I know he only had, Carson Ryan had 2 catches for 8 yards. I still really like Carson Ryan. I think this is his first year. He spent a lot of the offseason rehabbing. He missed time with an injury. I think we're going to see the Carson Ryan that was over 200 yards at UCLA, but will have a chance to go over 300 yards next year at Utah once he has a full offseason of just getting better. A couple of you guys talk about Scalley's intensity. Spartan YT and then Cole Stevens. Both of you are basically saying, love Scalley's intensity with 19 seconds left, and the win locked up exactly what we need. Love to see the passion out of Scalley. I totally agree. I think they wanted this win to look as dominant as possible. And yes, they get the final garbage time touchdown. But look, Utah had 2 pick sixes in this game. Like, we know what the Utah defense did. The Utah offense, I like Luke Bottari. He made a couple of nice throws and plays. He was 13 for 20 overall. The throw to Landon King. He had another one, Williams, one of the ones on a first down. A couple of nice throws by Bottari. But the Utah offense, for the most part, was the Utah offense. They struggled to run the ball for large stretches of this game. They were better running the ball tonight than normal. The 22 carries, 87 yards for Mekhi Bernard overall. But yeah, this is a Utah offense that it's rough, right? Like, when we see Bottari out there tonight, it's hard to just be like, oh, this is exactly why he should have been starting over Isaac Wilson. Did he make a few more plays? Sure. But I mean, Utah's offense only had 14 points. And even one of those earlier ones, I do believe was off a UCF turnover, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, the defense was impressive. Nice to see our defense back. Someone brought up. He just had the it factor. Who's going to be the new RB1? That's a great question by Jack Hansen next year. I think Mike Mitchell is the odds-on favorite to be RB1 right now. But let's not forget, Anthony Woods is coming back. That's a guy who had over 1,000 yards when he was at Idaho. Missed the season due to an injury. I'm excited about Woods. I'm really excited to see more DeJohn Stanley. With the speed and potential that he flashed, I think he has got to be a big part of this offense moving forward. We have someone who has that elite level of speed and is that type of can run routes out of the backfield like we know, I believe he can. So that's another one that I do think would be a key RB for Utah. And then you should still look in the transfer portal. Continue to look, try to find guys. I don't know if they'll move John Randall back to running back. John Randall actually had a special teams penalty tonight. I think they were going to fake a punt to him, by the way. I don't know if you guys Saw that there was I think it was a false start or delay. It was a delay game. By the way, you want to talk about bad football teams, which is these two teams are. They're both missing a bowl game. Both teams had delay of game penalties before the first play of a drive. That's really hard to do. Have a delay when you already have the play called, when you're on the sideline most of the time, everyone knows what you're going to do. You're running out onto the field and you still get a delay penalty, game penalty. That one's tough. Also, I don't think there's many UCF fans on, I can imagine, but I also believe based on how the season has gone, Gus Malzahn fired a lot of people. There were some expectations. I believe both these coaches were probably coaching in their last game. We'll see if I'm wrong. Maybe UCF will give him another year. We had Mike G on of Locked On UCF. You guys make sure you go over and subscribe to his show. He's going to do a great job breaking down the Knights this offseason. He kind of talked about all the changes were there, and there is a buyout factor. So will they move on from Gus? We'll see with that. But as for Utah, like I said, expect Scally to be named the head coach in waiting here in the near future. I mean, there's a lot to still decide about this Utah football team, right? We got to see, is Kyle Whittingham going to stick around? Is Morgan Scall's going to be named the head coach? Is Cam Rising sticking around? I know there's a lot of you who feel a certain way about that decision. But I still feel like there's a chance that happens. Who stays? Who enters the portal? I genuinely expect to see a lot of that. I don't know if we'll see it Saturday, but easily by Sunday, I expect to see guys putting their name into the portal. That's just often what happens. The transfer portal moves very quick. Guys want to start taking their visits. I think it is Samurai. No, it's not Samurai. My English is rough. Anyways, got to hit the portal hard for guard, center, linebacker, running back, QB. QB is by far the biggest need for me. Utah has to get a veteran QB. I think the other positions, I do think Utah should add an interior offensive lineman. This is going to get really, I'm glad you guys love football as much as I do, because we are going to talk offensive line. I know it's all these, hey, let's just talk about quarterback, wide receivers, all that. No. I want to talk about offensive line real quick. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, got to keep them. Interior, I think we're going to get Mokafizi back. So that's big. You get a 3-year starter returning at right guard. Tongai was up and down at left guard, so I want to bring in competition for him. I thought Keith Olson actually did a lot of good things tonight. And then Jaron Cup will graduate, but I do think it was time for a new center at Utah anyways. But if they want to do something like Tongai versus Olson for the guard, or Ike Garcia is a 4-star offensive lineman just sitting on the bench for Utah, I think he could play guard. And then you move like Olson or Tongai someone over to center. I would like that offensive line for Utah. And if you get better quarterback play, then teams can't pack the box, right? So then the running game is going to be better. When you got a guy like Mike Mitchell, who's only going to continue to get better, then you are going to have guys like to continue to grow and get better too, like a Anthony Wood just coming back from the injury and recovering. Dejon Stanley is another one like that too. So I do think there's a lot of talent still in this Utah running back room. I think that Jim Harding's still done a good job recruiting. You should get 4 of your 5 starters back on the offensive line. And even the receiver room, a lot of young guys who flashed things on the season. Have to go get a number 1 receiver. That's my second biggest need, probably outside of quarterback. I think Utah should also try and add another pass rusher, although Paul Fitzgerald and John Henry Daly, Fitzgerald, the Utah State transfer, and John Henry Daly, another transfer from BYU that Utah got. Those guys played sparingly on the year. Logan Fano will be coming back, but you're going to lose a lot of those guys too. But love seeing this Utah team find a way to get a victory tonight, or not find a way. I mean, they just dominated. And also, we didn't get to talking a lot about the future so far on this episode. Let's talk about some of those seniors. Correne Reed he's so good at football. I mean, he's just so good at football, right? Like the sack where he hurdles the dude. How can you not love it? This Utah defense is so much better with Corene Reed on the field. I'd love to see the numbers and stats. Like what Utah's numbers were when Corene Reed was on the field. And I know they got steamrolled by not steamrolled, but gave up a lot of yards at Colorado still. But most teams tend to do that. Oklahoma State gave up a lot of yards against Colorado earlier today, actually. But love what Corene Reed does. Ends his Utah career with 10 tackles, 8 of those solo, 1 sack, and 1.5 tackles for loss to Van Fillinger. The broadcast team kept calling him the mayor of Sack Lake City, which I actually loved it. I love that when he gets the shout out there. And it is such an awesome name that Utah has. 7 tackles for him, 6 solo. Junior Tufuna wasn't able to finish the game. He had the 3 tackles, but then at the end of the game was in a street close by the very end. He's just a legend. I mean, Junior Tufuna, if you were going to ask someone what is the representation of a Utah man, I think in many ways you could say Junior Tufuna, for the love and passion and the heart he plays with, play in and play out. Like I have no doubts. Well, I have no doubts about most of these guys, but like Junior Tufuna leaves everything out there when he's on the field. Most guys do, but Tufuna just another level of playing hard. He blew up a couple of plays tonight too. Overall, I thought Utah did a really good job on RJ Harvey. I know he ended up with 20 carries, 119 yards, been 6 yards per carry, but obviously there were a lot of drives where UCF had to be in third and long situations because they give it to Harvey twice and there was nowhere to go. This front seven tonight, and yes, once again, no, Harvey got 119 yards on the game. He ended up over 130 if you include his garbage time reception too in the end zone that he got. But this was the front seven. The plays that needed to be made by this front seven were so frequently tonight. When you're talking about Aliki Vaimahi being back too, Vaimahi's like the perfect third defensive tackle. The guy you can rotate in, play and play out. And if you got a guy injured, can come in and step up because no Tanu Vasa tonight. So really liked what I saw from Vaimahi. Dallas Vakalaki is another guy. I think his future is tremendous. I think he's going to be – I could very well see him starting next to Tanuvasa next year. I think that you do get Samote Pepa back, if I'm correct, so he could very well start next to Tanuvasa too, but Vailaki looks explosive. He had a sack tonight too. I'm just a big fan of his game. I know this was such a rough season for Utah, but also hear me out. I would be curious to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments on this too. Utah should have probably been 6-6 this year instead of 5-7, right? If you look at the way the BYU and Houston games play out, most years, way those games go out, you win one of those two games, I feel like, at the very minimum. And obviously, Utah had several other close games, right? I mean, we look back at some of these losses for Utah on the season. The TCU one, right? It's just 13-7. You were in it against Arizona State. We were in it against Arizona. We were in it against Iowa State even. You lose by 3 in that one. So, all these games that Utah was in, this is not a team that I look at and go, oh, yeah, they were not a bowl team in terms of, the caliber of football they play. Utah was overall not a very good football team, but they should have at least been a bowl team to me, and it's unfortunate one of those games didn't go the way. Troyer, Snyder keeps setting in Snowden pick. Yes, the Snowden pick was electric. That's one of the best plays that Utah's made on the season. Honestly, I'm trying to think just instincts coming out of nowhere, getting it in, getting into the end zone. That was an epic pick by Snowden. This Utah secondary, I'm still fired up about it. I think Teo Johnson's coming back. He needs to improve on his tackling to play at the NFL level, in my opinion, but he's still really good in coverage. Nate Ritchie flashed some really good things for this Utah team. Hate seeing Gilman have to go out after he get the targeting call. Unfortunately, I was targeting, so I knew as soon as he did it, I was like, oh no, he's going to be gone. So hate to see that for him. Rabbit Evans continues to flash. Evans is another guy I'd love to see Utah have stick around. For corners specifically, if next year you give me Cam Calhoun, Elijah Davis, obviously Smith Snowden being the guy in the slot. And then last we heard earlier this week, Kyle Whittingham said that Kenan Johnson announced his intention or was interested in coming back. That'd be big for Utah. Speaking of guys interested in coming back, I expect Lander Barton to come back. I don't think he was a top 60 NFL draft pick with what he put on tape this year. So if he wants to be a higher NFL draft pick, which he should and continue to grow and develop, which he also shouldn't want to because his potential is through the roof for what he could be at the next level, but he's not playing his best football yet, he should come back. So if he comes back, Leobani Dumuni missed the year with the injury, he could very well also come back. And then who else is coming back? Jonathan Hall, who every game got better this year. That's not an easy switch going from safety to linebacker, and he was a physical safety, so that was his strong suit. So he flashed some nice things, and he tonight did a lot of really good things, I thought, overall. He had a big pass breakup in this one. What were his final stats and numbers? But I really liked what I saw from Jonathan Hall tonight. Where's he on the stat sheet? Oh, he had one tackle. Okay, yeah. Jonathan Hall played a way more impactful game than a one tackle game. There are some guys who just look on here. Aliki Vaimahi's another one. He only had one tackle. When you watch these games, Cameron Calhoun, another great example of that, we led the show. He had one tackle. I forgot he was on the field at times tonight. And if you are a great defensive back, that's going to happen because no one's even going to think about throwing your way. And he was fantastic, right? This is not taking a shot at Zamiah Vaughn, but if you look at the stat sheet, you'd be like, well, Zamiah Vaughn had 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Cam Calhoun played a better game than Zamiah Vaughn clearly tonight. Cam Calhoun, I would argue, him and Smith Snowden were the 2 clear best Utah corners versus Vaughn was frequently targeted by and frequently beaten coverage. He had the pick and had a nice sack and a couple other nice breakups in the game. But he ends the game with 2 pass breakups. So this Utah team, man, just continued to fight all year. And I'm still fired up about the future of this Utah defense. What we talked about for transfers, love to see them add a defensive end. I feel like they missed an elite pass rusher at time. Logan Fano was coming off an ACL injury last year, though, that he sustained. It's 2 years in a row he's had that type of an injury. So he also needed that time to rehab and get back to healthy this offseason. Now he's just going to spend it training preparing for next year. I think he can take another step as a pass rusher too. But shout out to the seniors once again who are going to be leaving this team. Correne Reed, Junior Tafuna, Van Fillinger, Zamiah Vaughn, Luke Bottari stepping in tonight, Dorian Singer, Mekhi Bernard, man. What a year for Mekhi Bernard. When a lot of people come into the year, myself included, were questioning who's the best running back on Utah's team. Like, who's going to be? Even Kyle Whittingham constantly kept saying, we're waiting to see where RB1 is going to be, who's going to emerge. And that ended up being Mekhi Bernard. He absolutely emerged. I think he was one of the 20 best backs in college football. He got hurt by a lack of a passing game late in really most of the season, right? So teams would load the box on him constantly. But over 1,000 yards from Mekhi. Yards after contact was impressive. He averaged 5 yards per carry. He was a beast. He was an absolute beast. Someone said, I'm really proud of Bernard this year. Zacharyus Williams looked great. If Demooney comes back, it would help a ton. Totally agree. I think Utah really missed Demooney when Reed was out. Because Reed missed time last year, and Demooney stepped in, and this Utah defense really didn't miss a beat because of that. Someone, World Box Person 14 said, we need a senior QB for 1 year, and then we let Isaac play. I like that you mentioned Isaac Wilson. I know a lot of you guys, which some of the people in the comments have been funny because they're like, JT, what's up with your love affair with Isaac Wilson and things like that, which I think is so funny because a few weeks ago I've said, if you consistently look at this Utah defense, Isaac Wilson is what's holding Utah back. What I've said this past week is Isaac should not have been and all year, honestly, Isaac should not have been thrust out there. Isaac, I believe, has shown enough flashes still, and I know it's been a lot of not good, but shown flashes that Utah should not give up on their investment of Isaac Wilson. Now, hopefully he wants to come back. There have been quarterbacks who had a lot worse seasons than Wilson had, and he had a rough year that transferred for less of a reason. So hopefully Wilson comes back. I believe in his future. He should have an opportunity to redshirt, sit back, grow. Freshman to sophomore leap, usually immense. Spencer Fano grew a lot freshman to sophomore year. Caleb Lomu didn't do anything last year. I don't even know how many games he played in, and he was a mainstay for Utah all season and was fantastic at tackle. How about, speaking of our tackles real quick, how about he gets beat for the sack. Lomu gets beat for the sack, right? And then he scoops it up and then he tries to run for it. I love that. I also love that Mike Bajakian went back to the Spencer Fano pass. They got him for the 2-point conversion. They left him on the right side because I need to go back and watch it, but they actually left him at tackle this week when they ran the 2-point conversion last week, right? They moved him across to the left side of the offensive line and they lined him up next to Lomu and even next to a tight end. So he's kind of lost in the shuffle. This time he was the end guy on the line of scrimmage out on the right side. And he went forward instead of backwards. So that's why it was a flag. But he made the catch. It was a nice catch. He had to leap forward and drag the defender with him too. So really liked what I saw from him there. PNW Utes said Mekhi for 1,000. Yep, love seeing Mekhi get in there too. I think I've told this before, but I actually used to be in class with Mekhi Bernard a little bit when I was back at school for Utah. So Mekhi, a great guy, gave so much to this program over the years, right? Was a part of a victory against BYU in 2019 and just the 2019 season. And now goes through a rough year, but did a lot of good things too. Johnny Jurgensen said Vaughn was an unexpected liability this year. Essentially towards the end of the year, I agree. I thought he did a lot of good things early in the year, but these last two games, not his best. And then I do agree. You said pump for the future of the DB room, though. I am as well. Schroeder said Isaac not fair for a true freshman to start. Hopefully Cam can mentor Isaac. Could be great if we develop. Yeah, we'll see if Cam comes back. I would not love it if Utah brought Cam Rising back, but we'll see what ends up happening there. I do want to see, is there any good quotes from Kyle Whittingham's press conference? Let's see what we got here. Of course, Joe Coles tweeting out that Kyle Whittingham declined to comment on his future post-game, preferring tonight to be about the players. Great move by Coach Whitt. I do really like that. I wouldn't have a problem. I would have loved if he actually said earlier this week if it was going to be his final. It was just so we could have celebrated all of his achievements, but that's not really the type of coach and person that Coach Whitt seems to be. Said, doesn't look like there was really anything notable said. Just scan through the comments. If you guys see anything notable, the last time we did this live post-game was when when Mark Harlan ended up hijacking the press conference before it started. So that caused obviously a wild whirlwind of everything. And, we had the news too that Brant Keithy was out for the year. Speaking of seniors, Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, regardless of what they do, Utah legends for what they've been able to do for this program. Absolute just dogs for this Utah team too. So, yeah, no updates about Kyle Whittingham's future, but Vaughn, PNW, Vaughn averaged 3 tackles for a loss per game. He wasn't the issue. Did Vaughn averaged 3 tackles for a loss per game as a corner? I don't think that's the case. You can I'll double check that stat later, but I don't think that's my Vaughn average 3 tackles for loss per game. But love seeing this Utah team get a victory. Look, Utah had a rough year, obviously, but I don't think it's like Utah is not. I mean, honestly, maybe this is wrong because we're in a similar place, but we beat them. But I look at how close and competitive Utah was in their games. It's so different than what happened, like Oklahoma State. Look at how differently Utah and Colorado played Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a program I'm concerned about. I do not think next year Utah is not going to be, unless they get a really good transfer quarterback. I don't think Utah is going to be one of the 5 favorites in the Big 12 as we sit here right now. But could Utah finish in the top 5 of the Big 12 next year? I believe absolutely. When you look at the talent they have coming back, they were held so much by poor quarterback play this year that if you get that position right, then you have so many guys come back along the offensive line, a really strong defense coming back. Why can't Utah bounce back? And when you see teams play these close types of games and lose them one year, a lot of times that usually flips. And I think it very well could for this Utah team. Oh, PNW said 3 tackles per game. Yes, 3 tackles per game. But that's not always great when you see a corner doing that, because that also does mean he was targeted a lot. And usually those tackles came after he had given up a play. So that's the other thing about the danger with kind of tackles per game for a corner, especially. Zacharyus usually does make 1 or 2 nice plays in the run game. Tonight he was a blitzer on one of the key 4th downs. How about Morgan Scalley in his bag tonight, by the way, with some of those blitzes? He was, it's fun to watch him do. It's fun to watch it when Morgan gets going and just drawing it up from every which way and direction. Also, probably going to shut it down in the next 5-ish minutes, guys. So if you have any other questions you want me to ask and things to talk about this week on Locked On Utes, you can drop them here, and we'll be sure to hit them. I mean, talk about this on the show this coming week. We'll be talking about Kyle Whittingham's final game, transfer portal news. I do expect a lot of these guys to hit, not a lot of these guys, a lot of players to hit the portal for Utah. Because unfortunately, Utah is not going to the Big 12 championship game, obviously, and Utah doesn't have a bowl game left. That's the other thing. Oh man, Utah doesn't play a football game again until August. I don't want to end this stream on a downer by bringing that up, but it's just true. And it's really unfortunate because obviously if you're listening to this, you love Utah football as much as I do. And it's been so much fun to always follow and cover this team, even in years when it was a disappointment like this, right? Each game, the thrills of it. I wouldn't want to be a fan of any other team. I wouldn't want to cover any other team than I get to do this to Utah. That's my team. That's your team. And as we do, this is the final game of the season. I just want to also say thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart. Sincerely, thank you guys so much who continue to listen and support this show and allow me to do. We're closing in on 3,500 subscribers. That's crazy. That's something that, when I first started this show and the channel had, I think, a little over 300 subscribers, something like that. That was obviously a dream, is to get to there one day, but now that we're almost there and already over 3,000. It's wow. It's really cool. And I love getting to do this and talk about Utah. And I appreciate you guys allowing me the platform to do it. And once again, there is so much to talk about with this team this offseason, because there is no offseason with college football anymore. The transfer portal is always going. There's always news. Portal and the NFL draft deadline isn't until, I use deadline loosely for the portal, deadline seriously for the NFL draft. That lingers for a very long time. That's a month plus of that. So you're going to see a lot of guys moving, a lot of guys in and out. We're going to see coaching hires. And whenever you hire a new OC, he might want to bring in some of his own coaches on that side of the ball too. So what happens on the offense? What happens on the defense? If we see Morgan Scalley become the head coach, does he keep defensive play calling duties, or does he promote someone else to be his DC? Is that a Sharif Shaw? Is it Colton Swan? Is it Luther Ellis? There's a lot of options for who that candidate could potentially be, and there's a lot of turnover. It's going to happen with Utah. They said they're going to bring in 10 to 15 portal players. They said they're going to bring in a number of recruits as well too. And we already saw some freshmen make an impact to start this year. We know Lander Barton, the Clark Phillips of a couple of years ago, those impact players and freshmen. There's a lot that can change for Utah football. This was a disappointing season, but Utah was nearly much better than they were. They could have gotten better quarterback play. If Cam Rising doesn't get hurt, who knows what happens this season if Cam could get back to the level he was at. Utah, even with it as it is, nearly squeaked out a couple of close wins too. So this Utah football program is not going to be, I don't expect this to be like the norm. I don't expect Utah to be an under 500 team year in and year out. There's a reason this was only Kyle Whittingham's second losing season since being with the Utah football program, right? This is uncommon for this team. It's a really good team. Defensively, this team still brings it. this team is still one of the best. They were one of the top 3 defenses in the Big 12, and they'll have a lot of those guys back, and they are set up to replace a lot of the guys they lost, just like they were a top 3 defense in the Big 12, even after losing a pass rusher the quality of Jonah Ellis and safeties the quality of Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop. Utah's going to lose some more quality players, and they're also going to gain some quality players. That's what the transfer portal and just the change from one college football season to the next will bring. And it's going to be a lot of fun. A couple of you guys, Bizarre Matt's Nachos, fantastic name, said thank you. Troy Dreyer said thank you. And John Jernigan said thank you. Appreciate all you guys for listening. Hope all you guys do stick out. All you listening right now, hope you stick around for the offseason. I understand some of you guys are just in season, but there is a lot to talk about during the offseason too. So hope you'll join us there. But Utah gets one final win. Love seeing this group, love seeing this team put in so much time to try and reach the lofty goals. Injuries and just a couple of tough outcomes weren't going to allow that to happen this year. Love seeing them get one last win. 5-7, not what we wanted, but I do think, Jimmy Emerson makes a good point too. We get some returning missionaries coming back too. Who's the pass rusher out of American Fork that I think is going to be coming back? Oh, one of you wants to save me real quick and drop that name before we get out of here too. Best former intern ever. Thank you, PNWU. Hunter Clegg. Hunter Clegg is the 4-star pass rusher Utah's going to be getting back. That's going to be a guy to watch for Utah moving forward too. And yeah, I'm fired up for the future of this team. I love getting to cover this team. We'll see all the changes that come. A lot of news is still going to be coming out. So make sure you guys keep it at Locked On Utes. Utah and Kyle Whittingham in what very well could be his final game get one last win against UCF, 28-14. Thank you all for tuning in to this live Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you this week talking all things Utah football as they get ready to navigate the craziness that is NIL, the transfer portal, and college football today. Good night, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your week.